As I discussed in the previous movie, Illustrator gives you some tools for creating simple infographics, and mine is currently set to pi. I think the column graph tool is default, so if you are seeing this tool, you're probably seeing that one if you have not used these. And if you're not seeing either of those tools or any of the other options here, which include a stacked column graph tool, a bar graph tool, a line tool, scatter tool, a couple of others, I'm going to stick with pi for the time being, then it's probably that you have the simplified version of the toolbar. So if I click on these three dots at the bottom of your toolbar and you click here, just make sure you are set to advanced rather than the basic toolbar. So I'm going to start by drawing out a pie chart, and you can just draw it or you can click, but we'll just start with that. And it creates it, and it is linked to essentially what is a little spreadsheet. And it just gives me a 1 by default, but I could just start typing in numbers. And I'm hitting tab to advance from cell to cell. I could hit return if I wanted to go down. And that's enough to get started. So I'm just going to hit the checkbox here to apply that. And we could see that bar chart with the slices in place. And this is Illustrator's default style for a bar chart, for a pie chart. And like a lot of other things in Illustrator or across the Adobe Creative Suite, if you're using the defaults are often just by themselves a little bit clunky. And so you'll probably want to style that up. Now, what happens if these were stacked in a single column? Well, you can transpose your rows. So that it is, I'm clicking that little transpose button. I could click again. And what happens then is I get multiple pie charts that are differently sized in comparison to each other. But I think I want that one composed row again. And so I can hit apply, and there it is. And then we could start to style it up a little bit. So you can close this out, or you can just leave it open to access it in case you want to change those numbers later on. So here it is, the usual. Oh, it's got a 0.5. How sophisticated. This used to be always 1 point. But I can take this chart now, and I can, for stroke, give it no stroke. Just type in a 0 there, which I think already looks a little bit better. And I can also pull up my swatches. Let's pull that in. And I can give these different colors, or I could use any of the methods you can use to color something in Illustrator. You can, let's make that a little bit different. Maybe that one I'll just leave as black. Now, the thing to note about this is that this is a live effect. So if I select, get back to my group selection tool, and these numbers are still working or still connected to this graph. So I can say 53, well, I really want that to be 110. And then I hit OK, it changes right along with it. Let's undo that. So that's certainly one way, is to just color it, and that's pretty basic, but that is one way to handle it. Oh, and I should say, let's make a copy of this. Let's just pull that out. And the other thing to note is if you pull one of these slices out, let's get my direct select tool for that. If you pull one of these out, these are all individual vector shapes, but it is nevertheless still connected. So I meant to make a copy of that. Now let's pull that out. And select that again, and let's make that last one, instead of 23, let's make it 10. Tab, and let's add another one. And it just adds an extra and adjusts it all accordingly, even though it is pulled out. Although if I wanted it to still look nice, I'd probably have to get it a little bit more centered. The other thing you can do to style these up, and let's make another copy. And let's say window, and let me go down to graphic styles. And there's libraries of various things in Illustrator. This one is graphic styles, and these are just, you can create your own. These are just a bunch of pre-cooked looks for something. So I can check that, and some of these work better than others. Let's try buttons and rollovers. That looks nothing special. But there are, if you go exploring, you can find graphic styles that can work. The other thing that works nicely with these, I think, is 3D. And I think 3D in Illustrator generally is less satisfying than 3D in Photoshop, but it's not going to let me to apply it. Here we go. Guess I can't do it with the pie chart open. So I'm just going to do a basic extrude and bevel. And it's already previewing, but I think what I'm going to do is make it 0. Make that 0. Oop. Okay, so we need to redo that. I'm just going to my appearance panel, getting this back up. And the colored tip is the top of that. Really what I want is to look something like this. And you can make the 50 as the depth of the extrude by default. I'm going to make it more like, say, 10. And let's take that down to 0. And so you can make it look almost like it's a pizza sitting on a table, and that can make a graph a little bit more interesting in InDesign. Now you'll find that this is basically how all of them work. What's distinctive about the pie one is it does not give you numbers. The other charts give you numbers automatically. Let's just take a look at that. I'll go back to the default clunky one. I click, so it's asking me for a size, so that's fine. And you see I have the exact same interface, and these tools work the same way. So let's just keep that at 1 and say 33. And I will say OK. And we have that same basic thing where all of these get an outline, and they all get a this kind of unattractive and clunky looking comb with the numbers showing us the size of these. If I wanted a number on these, which is what I would usually do in this situation. You know, why make someone go look at the comb and say, is that 33, or, you know, or whatever it is. I'd put the number right on the bar itself, and so I would want to get rid of this stuff. And you can expand this, but then you don't have access to the bar chart anymore, the numbers part. But you can expand it, and then these will become independent vectors, and you can delete those. I think you can also just take these. I need my swatches back. And I could just change the fill to none. I think I have to change the stroke to none as well. So it'll still be editable, and I can make those vanish without affecting the functionality of the graph. And so that's the thing to know about bar graphs and pie charts in Illustrator.